Planet Alcatraz is a 2006 RPG in which a Soviet boomer explains what other races are really like and what the woman's role in society is. Consider this to be a content warning. There is no millennial RPG more politically incendiary than Planet Alcatraz. This video is more or less safe, but when you see Flowey from Undertale show up in the corner of the screen like this, it means something fucked up is about to follow. The reason it's unknown to foreigners is because, well, the original is almost entirely written in untranslatable Russian prison jargon, and the English version is supposedly very heavily censored. You just know it's going to be an experience when a game starts with the lead writer walking to the camera to explain himself. Welcome to the video game Planet Alcatraz. The game is masterfully created based on a book I wrote. The book is about the difficult fate of the Special Operations Brigade Deadhead, best commandos in the galaxy. The game is also about these wonderful people. The man in front of you is Dmitry Goblin Puchkov. He is responsible for this game and for about half of the Russian online culture. Born in 1961 in Kirovograd. Mother worked in a school for the disabled. Father was a Soviet instructor of the North Korean army. Dmitry was drafted in the military in 1980, drove a truck, became a sergeant. During the following turbulent period, he found employment as a taxi driver, blacksmith, locksmith, plumber, electrician, dog handler, librarian, assistant driller, engineer hydrogeologist, and a Xerox machine salesman. In 1992, he became a cop, claims he read The Gulag Archipelago by Solzhenitsyn and wanted to see if it was all true. Puchkov changed a number of police-related professions. First, he worked with police dogs, then in a prison, and then as a criminal investigator. A journalist wrote an article critical of cops, calling them goblins in police coats. Puchkov took this as his online handle. When I said he invented half of the Russian online culture, that was barely an exaggeration. Puchkov ran and still runs one of the first blogs in the Russian internet. He translated foreign movies, wrote for early gaming magazines and websites. His specialization were boomer shooters, or as they were known back then, shooters. Quake was the favorite game. He wrote a lot about multiplayer tactics, early esports, about Team Fortress. Not this Team Fortress, not this Team Fortress, this one, the original. Puchkov authored several books, became a YouTube pioneer, and here is Goblin a month ago in a swastika event. That's the story so far. Given the trajectory, we could see President Goblin at some point, so it makes sense for us to examine the art he makes. Planet Alcatraz is a role-playing game. As you complete the mission, you get to visit exotic places, meet colorful characters, and shoot them if you so wish. The game's story is non-linear. The consequences of words and actions might surprise you. Be careful. Understand that the game's events take place in a very peculiar place, a prison planet, populated with scum, rapists, murderers, cannibals, and racists. This garbage doesn't respond well to humane treatment. You'll have to be uncompromising and tough. We are a member of the sabotage and reconnaissance group Upir, which means a vampire or a ghoul in Russian. Seaman Silence is a prison planet somewhere on the periphery of our vast star empire. The planet's named after a really existing federal prison in Moscow. The Imperial Intelligence received word that the inmates are secretly assembling a starship. Our task is to infiltrate the planet undercover, posing as prisoners, find the location of the illegal starship, and destroy it. This is what hyperspace travel looks like. The Empire is incredibly technologically advanced. The protagonist of the game is a soldier called Kaban. As a man in the service, he doesn't just fuck around doing whatever. He executes the order given to him. Kaban, the Space Marine, is a true internationalist. He equally hates moral freaks of any shade of skin color. The name means boar in Russian. We can tweak the appearance sliders here, but no matter what we do, Kaban will be distinctly Kaban-shaped. The RPG system is a dollar store Fallout. The Imperial weapon skill is kind of like the energy weapons in Fallout 1 and 2. It's meaningless to take it early, but the Imperial weapons are powerful late-game items. I select Thieves thievery and melee as Kaban's preferred skills, as is recommended by any guide. Nobody will leave unsatisfied, irrespective of race and nationality. Kill them all! Kaban wakes up after a crash landing. He was left for dead. His friends are gone. Two locals approach us. Sweet white man, come alive. Me love alive white man better than dead. What be your name, princess? Planet Alcatraz plays kind of like an Infinity Engine game, although for the first half of the experience, Kaban will be adventuring solo. We won't reassemble our Space Marine squad until much later. I make Kaban gather potatoes. It's important to do this since the other notable difference between this and an Infinity Engine game is the potato-based combat system. In battle, the single most important variable is the number of healing consumables we have in our inventory, carrots and potatoes. The planet Alcatraz word for a black person is a Negro. It's not supposed to be derogatory. This used to be a common way of referring to people of African heritage in the post-Soviet space. Make a mental note that people who made this game almost certainly never met many black people, or possibly not even a single black person in their entire life. There simply weren't many individuals of African descent in the USSR. Later, we'll meet a character who explains that there are two distinct groups of black people on the planet. The first group are the sophisticated blacks who live near the Aryan town. They seem to have been modeled based on Russian understanding of what the African-American culture is like. And the second group are essentially just European colonial stereotypes, like the old ones from the Age of Sail. Members of this community are portrayed as stupid, they believe in magic spells, and are too dumb to speak the human language properly. Another major ethnic group are the Asians, or the Chinamen like the game calls them. They dress in Japanese clothing, use weapons from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and say L instead of R. And then, much later, we'll meet the Aryans, who dress in Wehrmacht uniforms and occasionally use German words in dialogue. The Aryans are hated by everybody, by the Asians, blacks, and even other whites. A white man from a flying box. My spear will beat your spear. When the game disrespects someone, it makes fun of the way they talk. As we are about to battle the inhabitants of the little tutorial camp, the two survivors from the pod are about to make their escape. It's a little confusing, but these two are not our squad members, just some random inmates that arrived with us. Stop! I came here for you, victims of justice. My name is Hamster, and from now on you are my daughters. Move it, mutants. March! It's important to avoid getting surrounded, because even weak enemies can stunlock you. Doing battle is the only way of achieving victory in battle, says Kaban the philosopher. The inventory management mechanics are fairly sophisticated, more so than combat. You can play dress up, there are several layers of clothing, kind of like in Morrowind. Most of the early game guns are one-shot improvised firearms, like the pipe weapons from Fallout 4, except these are discarded after use. Back when they were making this game, there was this popular movie about a veteran of the war in Chechnya going to New York to take revenge on an American businessman. The movie had a scene with an improvised firearm that looked very similar to the ones featured in the game. The final thing to do in the tutorial is to kill the gorilla monster. Thanks to all the carrots we collected, this is trivial. Kaban managed to surprise the mysterious man from earlier, but then he himself gets surprised. Promzona means industrial zone. It's a walled prison where inmates work until they die. A gulag. I like this concept art a lot. The ghouls in charge collect the disoriented prisoners dropped from orbit and work them to death, making something. So, we only got 3 of them? From a full drop? The chest fell hard. Many got crushed. There was a squabble. We got whoever we could. No reason to squabble over this one. Don't you see he has a stage 3 syphilis? The zone is huge, and this is just one area out of several. Feels a little over-designed. This is not the world map. This is the Promzona map. It's basically a city. Our goal is to escape. In this dialogue, we can choose to either be polite or rude to the guard, and this is the single most important choice in the Promzona. If we talk shit, they put us in the isolation, where we meet this guy, who tells us about his escape plan. If we follow this branch, we eventually become a local electrician, I think. But if we are polite to the guards, who are very clearly a privileged caste in the Gulag, we can become one of them. So, be rude, become an electrician. Be polite, become a guard. You can't claim the choices here don't have consequences, except the sad consequences are a little random and arbitrary. Hey Goover, a new arrival is extra confrontational, not accustomed to discipline. We thought he was your kind of patient. Let's appreciate just how good the combat theme is. It's energetic and, I don't know, ironic, fits the tone of the game well. Unfortunately, Planet Alcatraz has very few music tracks, but a lot of combat. We'll be hearing this track a lot. The main issue I have with this place is that being a gulag, it's very bland visually. But the game suddenly became a lot more fun once I learned that you get experience for stealing items. It's very easy to steal crap from other inmates, and you get XP per item based on its value. I got 2 levels in 5 minutes, an actual functioning industrial facility. And this is what they make here in the Gulag. Guns. We are asked to test fire some of the designs and then give our opinion on them. Kaban is a space marine, so he's knowledgeable in this kind of stuff. Selling all the garbage we stole, becoming a prom-zona oligarch. The assets in the mines feel like they were borrowed from another game, which they might have been. Planet Alcatraz was made on the engine of Dawn of Magic, a fantasy RPG that looks like this. And here is a screenshot of a very early prototype with sprite graphics. I like this style. This is the engine Knyaz was made on, another little-known fantasy RPG. Prom-zona is multi-ethnic. The leader of one of the black factions is called Snowball, which is a Stanley Kubrick reference. Dmitry Puchkov didn't become famous for writing Quake articles. He became famous for translating foreign movies. Kubrick's Full Metal Jacket had one of them Goblin translations. The game references the movie several times.
Хари Кришна, Хари Рама, Хари Смеха Панорама.
Smiecho Panorama is a Russian stand-up TV show from the 90s. Dad humor. What does it have to do with the game? Nothing. It rhymes with Rama, which is a Hindu god Kaban invokes to make fun of the Gulag cultists. You see why this game is untranslatable. A gym. They have a bench, another bench, and this thing for squats that can double as a bench. This is the most bro gym ever, and I completely approve.
Хоп, хей, ла-ла-ла-я, где вопросы, где ответ?
Kaban dancing and singing is the effect of alcohol or drugs. A Gulag discotheque. Eventually, Goover, the boss, promotes us. He complains that the inmates are fleeing prom-zona on a train. Interesting. The game's UI has a dedicated button for extorting money. Kaban yells a bunch of obscenities and the victim either surrenders their possessions or tells him to go fuck himself. I think it depends on the authority stat or whatever it's called. Unfortunately, Kaban's comfy life in the Gulag is about to come to an end. It's all because of a misunderstanding. The driver is chained to the train. Says if we fight off the black shirts, we can escape together. I didn't even say yes. Hey, you scabic mite! Who give you permission to come near the train? We are under orders to kill for this kind of shit. Brothers, we have another Aryan spy! Get him! The guards don't stand a chance, cause we're so over-leveled thanks to all that pickpocket XP. Finally, we're somewhere else. The Prom-zona episode isn't terrible, but it really started to drag by the end.
Хоп, хей, ла-ла-ла-я.
Kaban, this is not a good time. These sounds. That's a human pretending to be a giant mutant rat that's dying. Speaking of things pretending to be something they're not, the game was masterfully created based on the book I wrote. I don't want to give you a false impression that I am a reader of books, a booker, is that the term? Thanks to your Patreon donations, I can now do this. You know what this reminds me of? Same energy. This book is fucking weird. It begins with a short science fiction story about Kaban the Space Marine, but then it goes, the soldiers were taught warfighting skills via training simulations. The one the army used was called Quake. Most people thought it was a video game, but the soldiers knew what's up. The reason it was considered to be a video game is because the simulation was based on the real events. And then, I shit you not, the book transitions from a science fiction novel to a player guide on Quake multiplayer. This is what 60 or 70% of it is. Strategy, terminology, console commands, team fortress classes, tactics for individual maps. This section contains detailed instructions on how to record and play match recordings, or demos how they were called. Puchkov even name drops a bunch of famous players from his era, most notably Thrash, who was the guy who won Carmack's Ferrari in a Quake game against Entropy in 1997. Well, this is certainly not what I expected. Back to planet Alcatraz. Welcome to Severny. The name means northern town, the biggest settlement in the game, possibly the biggest on the planet. Smells like the insides of a dead man's asshole. I can feel the stench with my ears. The homeless person informs us that the Gulag escapees are usually sent back to the Promzona. We should change clothes. Stop it! The poorest district of Severny. Looks like a giant trash heap, but I do like that the people here are no longer dressed in blue robes. The item description says, clothing for homosexuals and prostitutes. A marine would be embarrassed to wear this. Our dudes aren't actually called Marines. The game uses the Russian word for paratrooper, so we're like interstellar paratroopers. In the Soviet and Russian military culture, paratroopers occupy the same space as Marines do in the United States. More badass than the army, less badass than special forces. So I'm gonna just call them Marines for simplicity's sake. We are still wearing some of the clothing from the Promzona, so the gangsters recognize us. I could have reloaded, but effort. Opening locks and pickpocketing gives more XP than quests and murder. The homeless person has 3 guns in his inventory. He must be from Space America. A Russian game, so a lot of alcohol and vodka-related humor. Translation not required. Stealing from this guy gave me more XP than clearing a map full of monsters. Convicts would randomly engage in these little social fights with one another. We're looking for the hijacker of the Promzona train. Do you know anything about this? We should move on. A dozen stalls in the market district, and there is a dedicated vendor selling sexy clothing. The priest puts us in contact with Blackie, an Imperial agent working on the planet undercover. He is our commanding officer. Behave, soldier, or I'll bring in a pair of strong Negroes. They'll teach you to love the Empire. So what do you want of me? You can rub the floor, the toilet is clogged, you can give me a pedicure, or you can find and wash all our socks. These guys really are Imperials. The guards are armed with Imperial blasters. That's endgame tech. We can't steal them, unfortunately. This is when the game opens up. Severny is like our Baldur's Gate, a hub for questing and trading. The quests open locations on the world map. The encounters don't appear to be random, however. Some of these locations are generic and honestly quite boring, but there are different biomes with different biome-appropriate creatures, like whatever this is, or this ostrich-looking thing. Reminds me of something I've seen in the Planet Alcatraz documentary. Initially, all our creatures had to be bipedal, so we made an ostrich, but it wasn't a common ostrich, it's a space ostrich. It has paws instead of wings, and it poisons you, a hellish creature from a nightmare. It ended up being the funniest monster in the game. It migrated to the 3D version. We came up with all sorts of creative legends about the relationship between the ostriches and the Negroes. Ostriches think that, well, they don't think anything, but the Negroes think the ostriches are undercover Chinamen who hunt Negroes out of hatred for Negroes, and they spit on them until they're comatose. Ostriches have a poisonous bite. But actually, the ostriches are engineered by the Aryan faction to guard the future Negro concentration camps. At one point, we even had the idea of placing serial numbers on the ostriches, but we couldn't do it for technical reasons. Or maybe we can paint swastikas, we thought. But basically, it was very funny. Ostriches are cool. Blackie has an important mission for us. It's about time we taught the Chinamen a lesson. They killed a valuable agent of ours. He brushes away an invisible tear. We are to invade the Yellow Quarter and brutalize Chief Ho from the Golden Rooster, a restaurant. By the way, Caban, says Blackie, do you know why beekeepers wear masks? No. Why? So that the bees won't find out what they look like. He gives us a mask.
Кто обидел черныш?
Whoever offended Blackie should die painfully.
Начинаем операцию Харьки.
Commencing Operation Hamster in the Henhouse. Follow me, Eagles. My kung fu is stronger than yours, they yell. The first challenging battle in the game. Our guys are very awkward to control. The UI just doesn't feel as responsive as in the Infinity Engine games. The foes have a diverse arsenal of weapons, from knives to guns to throwing stars with poison applied. Oh yes, the sword. This is the aesthetic I was going for with Kaban. A sword, shorts, and an Asian hat to imitate a cope cage.
Что было, шеф, что было?
You should have seen it, Chief. We beat the Chinese hard, but with grace. We did an Old Man Ho. Worked on him myself. A heel broke off from my shoe. In short, I think he's dead, but I'm not 100% on this.
Отменно.
Very good. Excellent news, soldier. The service thanks you.
Служу
Serving the Empire. We got a nice new helmet. It looks good on you, Kaban, says Blackie. Like you were born in it. When a bullet hits the head, the brain shouldn't splash the individuals around you, sir, replies Kaban. The White Quarter. I love the music. The locals dress well. The roads are paved. You can target individual body parts, just like in Fallout. Critical strike in the head means decapitation. Just look at us, the prestigious gentleman Kaban. This is not canon, by the way. Kaban hated men who dress well. He never considered them to be people, since they knew neither life nor the service, and were made out of material fundamentally different from what he was made of. Kaban thought the material these wretched creatures were made of was dog poop. The writing in the game is better than in the book. A plantation on a prison planet. It is with a heavy heart that I must announce that white people are at it again. Yet to meet a single woman character that wasn't a prostitute. Furious Fist. A fighting ring. The African trainer here can increase our melee skill for 10,000 bucks, which I think is a good deal. This young man's fiancée was kidnapped by thugs and brought here to the planet as a female slave. Worry not, my dude. Kaban is a protector of womenfolk. Or not.
На выход вещи.
Head to the exit. Leave your things here. Okay, please don't hurt me.
Хотя
On the other hand, wait just a second.
чуток.
And then he fucks her. There is no player input. I thought about removing this segment from the video, but then if I did, it would misrepresent what kind of game this is. Kaban takes a piss on the floor of the brothel, and then tells the woman she should leave, since this is now a man's restroom. What a strange emotional curve this fucking game has. From jokes to pogroms to jokes again to sexual violence to jokes.
Модель остался артист.
The church of whatever the local religion is called. None of the NPCs here are interactable. That's a comfy-looking establishment. Reminds me of the bars in Kenshi. That game fucking owned. Let's start a fight. One fun Fallout-esque feature is that if you steal these guys' weapons, they won't be able to use them in combat. I'm not sure if I like the firearm aesthetic in this game. Guns don't have much of an identity, at least not visually. I can never remember what the different types are called. About to check out Planet Alcatraz vibrant gay scene. Like everything Kaban does, it ended in violence. Despite the geographical isolation, people in the Asian village seem to be more well off compared to the whites in Severny, or at least they have more stuff in their pockets. Quite a few interesting original assets. Too bad the engine makes everything look like shit. Age of Decadence also has this problem. I've been reading the book some more. It's crazy to think about, but everything we've seen so far is Puchkov's interpretation of what the Quake extended universe would look like. Coincidentally, do you know who else was a Quake gamer with a massive impact on online culture? Rich Kiyanka, the guy behind Something Awful, who prior to that used to run GameSpy's Planet Quake. Puchkov is really an even more evil version of Low-Tax, but funnier and better at the actual game probably. He really is a man of culture when it comes to Quake. Like in this section, Goblin, who is both the author and the character in the book, signs praises to Dario Casali, a Doom mapmaker responsible for some levels in Final Doom, who then also worked on Half-Life 1 and 2, Left 4 Dead, Portal 2, but most of this was long after Puchkov's book was written. We should stop fucking around and reassemble our Space Marine squad. One of our guys is being sold at the slave market. His name is Gloomy. The price is 10,000 coins, but the slaver is willing to exchange our friend for 2 black slaves. One is available right here at the market. The game's UI seems to have a dedicated slot for temporary characters. They don't have dialogue and their inventories are inaccessible. A lot of effort went into making this animation. information. I'm not gonna bore you with details, but this quest eventually culminates in Kaban fighting a horde of starved townsfolk. Pretty sure AOD had a quest like this. That game comes up a lot. Gloomy is freed and he joins our group as a permanent companion. His scout skill is almost maxed out, but he has surprisingly low perception. Quite a few points invested in pistols and shotguns, so he's like a close-range gunfighter. The locals would randomly make fun of our naked companion, telling him to bend over.
Да, я принципиальный.
Yes, I'm principled, but I'm not a moron, one of his idle voice barks. Gloomy marks a bunch of new locations on our map, including this one, an Imperial supply capsule, I think. Kiting, the most dumbass of tactics, breaks many RTWP games, and Planet Alcatraz is no exception. Black people have their own district in Severny, which was just now unlocked for us to visit. This location is called the Dance Floor. The trader here sells rappers' pants, one of the very few places in the game where women aren't prostitutes. Instead, they are factory workers. The mountain biome has its own music track and creatures, quite a few different creatures. We get word that our fellow troop Kruger is captured by the cannibals who live somewhere in the jungle east of Severny. The huge gorillas look dangerous, but they actually fail to land a single hit. The cope cage protects us. The cannibal settlement has its own concept art, which looks great. Eating people is a ritualistic, religious thing. The cannibals are a cult. They won't allow us access until we disavow whatever the religion in Severny was called. Quite a few unique assets in the village. Every big community in this game has its own style of architecture, which is just a good RPG practice. We are invited to an audience with someone called Father Vendigo, but our captured mate Kruger keeps communicating with gestures that something terrible will happen if we go see him.
Давненько мы не виделись.
It's been a while. I thought I'd never smell anything this awful ever again. You should wash my socks then. It would be better if I drown you in a toilet to make this wasp's nest unlivable. Kruger is a sniper with 9 points in perception and no points in rifles. We'll have to fix this. Holy shit, this is the single most expensive firearm I've seen in this game. An Aryan town manufactured machine gun that costs 500,000 Alcatraz rubles, or whatever the local currency is called. It's too big to steal. The cannibals are fantastically well armed. The NPCs selling slaves to the cannibals are called Highlanders, which is actually a reference to Chechnya. There is this Russian belief that the minorities, the mounted folk, kidnap and enslave tourists. This country is a mess. Much of the Russian politics is defined by the struggle of two political forces, the Alliance and the Horde, the intelligentsia and the Siloviki. A Silovik is someone with a background in security services, FSB, KGB. This game was made by an ex-cop, which is like a lesser Silovik. The cops are goblins to the FSB orcs. Much of what foreigners think they know about the Russian Siloviki culture was actually made up by Tom Clancy to sell shitty political thrillers. Americans tend to think of the FSB or KGB officials as a foreign version of their own spooks, state-employed intelligence professionals, but in Russian hats. In reality, the Silovik culture is more like a combination of QAnon and respect-obsessed gangster culture, and they differentiate themselves from the intelligentsia by being proudly anti-intellectual. There is a world of deranged Silovik shit obscured from you by the language barrier. Is it possible our enemies are undercover Jews working for the British Crown, which secretly rules the world? The Americans tried to exterminate us with COVID. NATO bioweapon labs in Ukraine will take revenge on America by using Soviet technology to cause the eruption of Yellowstone volcano. Stratagem Gamma activated. Stratagem Gamma activated. One of the reasons the Silovik culture is practically unknown to foreigners, despite being ubiquitously present anywhere in Russia, is that the Siloviki, they don't really make art. They are not the intelligentsia. This is one of the many layers of complexity that make Planet Alcatraz a unique experience. It's an incredibly rare example of Silovik art. Rescuing Kruger unlocks access to the Asian quarter in Severny. Previously it was arbitrarily locked. The side quests we did was the only way of getting here earlier. The houses are very clean and nice looking. This is the only place in the game that actually looks comfortable to live in. Kaban is very enthusiastic about potentially learning Kung Fu from the sensei here. This little building turned out to be a prison where the Asians kept a jailed Aryan, whom we've accidentally rescued. Freedom! Thanks, man. The Reich will not forget this. Move it, Uncle Fascist. Get out of here. Well, hello. Hands up, bitch. I be forgetting that this scum sat there for 3 days waiting execution. Kill him, yes? The master race went to Heavenly Reich. The ninja wants us to travel around the neighborhood and kill people for him. Easiest side quest ever. The bad guy thought it was a stump, and then the sniper blew his brains out. It rhymes in Russian. The third victim is in a public place, and the ninja master recommends us to lure him somewhere more private. It's important to do this, since the game actually does have a crime and punishment system. The cops will come after you if they witness the Space Marines doing illegal shit. This is simultaneously the most fun and the worst combat encounter in Planet Alcatraz. I had to reload 5 times, and all because of shit design. A group of Asians is attacked by a horde of bandits. There are a total of 5 waves. Stray bullets keep hitting squad mates who kept aggroing on the Asians. But when the battle actually worked, it was glorious. So many bodies. Thank you, oh great white warrior. To commemorate this victory, I make myself a tattoo on my belly. The reward is a 4-barrel shotgun for Gloomy. The game has a weapon modding feature. You can attach a scope or an underbarrel grenade launcher to some guns. This little location is called the Policeman Camp. The policemen, like you probably guessed, are a gang. Sort of like the cannibals, but their favorite weapon is a shotgun instead of a machine gun. In combat, Kaban would sometimes bark out a racial slur. This is based on the ethnicity of the specific individual he's fighting. The policemen are multiracial, so all kinds of language is used. Let's rob a bank. When a character receives a critical hit, they'll drop their weapon. When fighting multiple enemies, the volume of fire is so large that you would receive many critical hits in a row. Surprise! Planet Alcatraz has flying creatures. You need ranged weapons to hit them. This is the only encounter type Kaban can't solve with a katana. The monastery encounter is a reenactment of the boomer shooter Blood 1 inside of a boomer RPG. The yellow-robed cultists are armed with submachine guns and rifles. The black ones have pitchforks and are almost entirely harmless. Kaban threatens to kill his enemies in a toilet, which is a reference to something Vlad Banana said during the Second Chechen War, where he promised to kill the nation's enemies everywhere, anywhere, even while they're taking a dump. The main quest eventually leads us to the village of Mombaso. Quite a few settlements in this game. That music. Not a whole lot to do in Mombaso, unfortunately. And then we get to Aryan town, one of the larger communities on the planet. Don't go there. The fortress is under siege. The monkeys are enraged. Take me off this thing. I want to die like a white man. The Aryan fortress is under siege by what appears to be an internationalist coalition of blacks, Asians, and whites. The Aryans have their own technology, like this SMG designed to resemble the actually existing Nazi MP40. The Darth Vader mask is good enough for me to permanently retire Kaban's cope cage. The board says whites only. We have goods. Allow us inside to trade, master. Can you read, you monkey? Well, this is different. The Aryans speak Russian with a German accent and dress in Wehrmacht-style uniforms. It's like something out of a Hearts of Iron mod. The last missing member of our Space Marine squad is kept somewhere in the fortress, but Demon, that's the troop's name, has an escape plan. There is supposed to be a fifth character, but we won't meet him in this game. That's saved for the sequel. The sabotage and reconnaissance squad Upir is reassembled. 4 ugliest motherfuckers on planet Alcatraz. Sometimes a person would approach me, they would look at my face, and then they would no longer approach me. The Aryan town is the second or third biggest settlement on the planet. Depends on if you count Promzona as a settlement or not. The comfy European-y looking fortress is surrounded by slums where the non-Aryans live. Meningitis either kills you or makes you stupid. My brother died, but I survived. Barbarossa is a bar and a gun store. They sell very good assault rifles. I think I'll buy one. We need to equip our boy Demon. Frau Gerda here is an extraordinary case of a woman in this game that is not a sex worker. In the wilderness, not far from the city, a Nazi is having a zombie problem. It's a catastrophe, a failed scientific experiment. The secret weapon of the Reich went out of control. I don't get it. Are the dead mutants a secret weapon? Yes, oh my god. Basically, our Negro subject suddenly went mad. Looks like we made a mistake dosing the special Aryan medicine. Or perhaps we held them in the gas chamber for too long. Run as fast as you can. Zombies can soak a lot of damage, but are easily dispatched with headshots. Private Kaban himself, look at that. Our people are everywhere. Margaritka here is a member of a woman-only squad. They're sort of like us, but gender-swapped. The Nazis captured some of their number and are using them for their sick experiments. Characters can crouch and lie down. I didn't mention this before because it's a lot less useful than it sounds. The game's difficulty sharply spikes after rescuing Demon. This is uncommon in boomer RPGs. Almost all of them have a reverse difficulty curve. Anyway, this is a sequel hook. Out of marketing concerns, I thought the sequel should be about women. So we created a little side quest about the reconnaissance team Margaritka. Women sent to a planet where there are no women, so they could conduct their sabotage work while remaining undetected. This is supposed to be a prologue for a sequel about women with tons of sexism and misandry. Dmitry said we shouldn't do this plotline. Many people asked what purpose does this serve? Why does this little side quest seem so out of place in the atmosphere, in the setting of the game? The answer to this question is, I told the designer to make this questline and he couldn't tell me no. These are my favorite characters, nobody else likes them. Power armor is a fun RPG trope, and we are about to see Puchkov's take on it. The policemen are fighting the Asians, who cleverly defend their position with a minefield of poisonous mushrooms. This is exactly what I expected it to look like. The prisoner-made suit makes one near invulnerable to bullets, but slows your movement speed quite a bit. There is a perk we can take to counteract this, but it seems like something one should plan in advance. The power armor is named after Puchkov's movie translation brand. Delivered from the word cunt, it means a catastrophic state of affairs. What the fuck? Robots. The armed men are the cannibals, which for some reason are the most high-tech faction in this game. They must be doing something right. What's their secret? The encounter design is getting more complex. The cannibals counterattack us with power armor troops and grenadiers hiding behind them. This is almost fun to play. Almost. Don't get me wrong. Even if we ignore Puchkov's awful politics, this is a frustrating game few will enjoy.
Kalima.
The Mombasa locals are trying to resurrect a dead Aryan via a contraption made of ostrich dicks or whatever. I have no idea how we got here. I think I blacked out. Oh my god, it's working! Let's dance to celebrate. Get the snow girl, they yell. Reminder that our team's mission on the prison planet is to discover the location of a starship the inmates are supposedly building in secret. This is an Asian-operated construction site. You're out of your mind, fucking cosmonauts, says Gloomy. We give the coordinates to the commanding officer Blackie back in Severny. He calls the space station Cerberus. But there is a problem. It wasn't a spaceship. It was a spaceship-shaped house the Asian community was building for one of their leaders to commemorate the Chinese achievements in space exploration. Blackie says we're too fucking stupid to work for him, so we should talk to the Imperial agent in Aryan Town instead. The Aryans are probably the ones building the spaceship, says the agent. They have the technology and they're motivated. We should infiltrate their ranks. It's easy to do since the Aryans are relatively small in number and extremely paranoid about the Great Replacement. They dress up Kaban in a Nazi uniform and give him an MP40. For multiple attempts to get into our city without proper documents. For self-evident racial inferiority. Private Kaban, I order you to commence execution. I don't think there is a way out of this without clicking the prisoners. This is the main quest, by the way. Her Marshal, the enemies of the city are exterminated without mercy. We get insight into the social conflicts of the greater planet Alcatraz universe. The Aryans, according to the Marshal, are dissidents, political prisoners in the Empire. This is also where we hit a game-breaking bug. Black screen that never goes away. I had to execute these poor guys a dozen or so times while I tried different solutions. People were telling me there is no fix. I even thought about tweeting at the developer. Hey, the game stops working after that scene where we join the Nazi party and execute people for racial inferiority. What should I do? Deleting the texture cache worked, allowing me to progress. Anyway, Kaban didn't remain in Gestapo for long. We quickly learned that yes, the Aryans are building a starship, specifically to evacuate their leader, the supposed military genius of planet, so that he could command their forces against the Empire. Hopefully we can win back Blackie's respect. The Cerberus station main weapon overheated after firing on the Chinese residents. We'll have to take care of things ourselves. To assist us in our mission, the Imperials will drop a package somewhere in the desert. The only ethical characters in planet Alcatraz. The Imperial combat armor offers the best defense in the game, and it doesn't restrict movement. We also get new guns. There are different kinds. The Imperial weapons skill was 100% useless until now. The reason they have a railgun in this game is because it's an iconic Quake 2 weapon, although it looks very different here for legal reasons. In the book, the instructor explains to Kaban how a railgun works and then spells out a Quake 2 console command that disables the annoying particle effects. This is all written in universe. And then there is this thing. A bomb, Gloomy, is something they drop from the sky, said Goblin with a condescending tone. I get it. So this is like an explosive mine. It is. Is it potent? I'd say it's extra potent. Not just some antimatter-filled garbage. It's a Satan-class extermination device, more popularly known as Mommy. The starship is being constructed in the caverns below the cannibal village. Despite our technological advantage, they still pose a threat. Some of the cannibals are armed with bazookas, a weapon we haven't even seen before. These can one-shot even fully armored space marines. Believe it or not, it's actually possible to side with the cannibals, at least according to this walkthrough. Admittedly, some of these plot elements sound like an elaborate joke, but then again, it's planet fucking Alcatraz. The caverns are mostly populated by the Aryans, who do all the actual construction. The Aryan Cannibal Pact, a CAP. They have plenty of power armor. Just because we got endgame equipment doesn't mean the combat suddenly becomes fun or a cakewalk. Look how easy it is to get stun-locked. The actual starship is hidden deeper underground, and it looks like something out of Star Trek. The new Star Trek, even. It's cool that the Imperial technology looks distinct from the prisoner-made crap we've been using previously, but it feels like a Nazi starship should look more, I don't know, Nazi-like. Hold fire. I am the pilot of this ship. I'm the only one who can fly it. You won't leave this planet without me. The destruction of the starship doesn't immediately end the game. You can still fuck around and finish whatever side quests, but this is a fairly long adventure, 30-40 hours or so. By this point, you probably had enough. The shuttle is sent to extract us. This is the closest thing the game has to an end boss. Access to the shuttle is blocked by a mechanized Aryan force, led by the same genius general they were trying to get off planet. My god, we will oppress you a little. One of the few battles in the game where I actually had to micromanage my characters. The Space Marines celebrate with alcohol.
Хоп, хей,
Commander, we should leave, said Tarzan, grimacing from pain. No generator means no power source for the Teutonic stabilizer. If we fail to find the elevator, we won't make it. We'll be buried beneath the rubble. Kaban looked at Goblin. Should we go? Goblin raised his index finger and said, "Not to our pants!" And then they ran. The reward for completing the game is the Space Marine song.
Тесный кубрик звездолета, мы десант, а не пехота. Под ногами 100 парсеков до земли. Кто курил, а кто кемарил, Крюгерштык любимый правил. В общем, отдыхали как...
This is a mix of two obscure song genres. One is Blatnaya Pesnya, which depicts a romanticized version of Soviet criminal subculture. And the other one is Ruski Chanson, which is the same except it's usually about military service, or a life of a low-middle-class Hrushevka dweller. Those of you who had the misfortune of playing the English version, I'm interested to know what exactly was cut. Needless to say, I don't recommend anyone pay money for this game. But you can give money to me via the crowdfunding platform Patreon. So Planet Alcatraz, what a strange experience this is. Explaining this game to an Anglophone audience is like trying to explain Family Guy jokes to a 90-year-old Siege of Leningrad survivor. In the Steam reviews, the Russians are having a mini culture war over this game. Most of the dialogue is written in the criminal slang, which Russians recognize as something low status, something below them. But this is false. Planet Alcatraz is not even a bad game. Goblin Puchkov is a genuine artist. It's just his medium is racism, rape, and war crime denial. The brush, the canvas. The views portrayed in the game are fairly mainstream, especially among older folk. In 2019, Goblin was given in honor of addressing Vlad Putin during an annual press conference. They very carefully filter people for these. So when I said he could become the president one day, I was only half joking. If you think the mainstream role pushed Puchkov to moderate himself, it's actually the opposite. Jesus Christ, Dmitry, you senile fuck, your wife is Jewish. Thought about leaving the Quake book here for someone to find, but a book on boomer shooter deathmatch advice might be useful for future videos. Gonna do something with good vibes next.